Hi, this is Curt and welcome to another edition of Fire Law Roundup.
Okay, let's go to Los Angeles. I'm much more comfortable with, suits in Los Angeles. I don't know how I feel about this. No shortage of them. I think this is a local thing. So look, it's a simple, it's not the simplest set of facts. We've seen this same type of accusation, but this is a lot. There's two parts of the accusation. So let me give you the best overview of the most pertinent facts that I can do. So a man goes to the bank, right? I don't know whether he's homeless or not, but he's going to the bank. He's trying to do a transaction. As he's doing this transaction at the bank, he said he's having chest pains and feeling lightheaded. And so he lays down in the bank, but still says, hey, keep processing the transaction while you're calling 911. Very dedicated banker, let me tell you. So the ambulance comes, they take him out to the ambulance, and they are very demanding, saying, we are taking you to the hospital.
And he's very upset. He's very upset that he's not allowed to continue his banking transaction while he's having chest pains and difficulty breathing. So
right. So he wants to delay it.
I want to include all that in there because we deal with this kind of nonsense all the time. So
yeah, but we do. And it's funny because there's a civil rights part of this, which we'll talk about, because last week we learned he probably is going to lose, but if the last week's case applies, but nonetheless, we'll talk about that. So here, right, he's claiming then that they took him to the wrong hospital he didn't want to go to. His medical records were somewhere else, is kind of claim one. Despite, hey, he was telling the paramedics, go get my bank card, don't take me yet, whatever. He talks about them being very demanding. He's going to the hospital. I'm like, yeah, because you're having a heart attack. We're going to demand you go to the hospital. Let's, forget about your damn bank card. It ain't going anywhere. It's with the tellers or whatever. Let's get you to the hospital. So they claim, hey, my medical records were somewhere else and you took me to a different hospital. I don't personally have a problem with that. You're going to the closest appropriate medical facility, all right? They'll get your medical records. They're all online between the hospitals. I'm sure they'll get them. So then they claim that he's getting very active, very vocal, very whatever. And they keep telling, allegedly, these are all allegations, by the way. Let me be clear. This is just out of the complaint. There's no court finding. These are just allegations. But a lot of them you could see as true and defend the paramedics on them. Like, no, we're taking you to the closest hospital. But they said, he said that they gave him a drug to calm him down or for some purpose. This guy claims he actually has a master's. I'm sure he does in some chemical related science. So he was familiar with the drugs they wanted to give him. He said, listen, I have an allergy. You can't give me certain drugs. Apparently he's having a STEMI, which our paramedics will know, but he's having a heart-related incident. They give him a drug. And here I get a little confused, frankly, at what actually happened. But he allegedly, the drug he's given to, I can't tell if he's claiming he's allergic to that one or not. But later he wakes up in the hospital having some, I don't know if it's paralysis or whatever, but he said they gave me a drug that caused him, I think it's paralysis, some paralysis, localized. And I'm guessing he's also suing the hospital, but he's basically saying you gave me Haldol or something else, which I shouldn't have. You didn't treat my heart attack, I believe is what he's saying. It's a little confusing to me anyway, reading this. And he said, you caused me injuries for all these things. You gave me a drug I didn't want. You gave me a drug maybe I was allergic to. You took me to the wrong hospital. And the hospital, I think, must have done something. And you didn't document my chart properly. You didn't treat my heart attack properly. And you're liable for my injuries. So now we have a negligence case that'll go on forever. I don't think anyone's going to settle this case. And the hospital will never really jump in and say that's not what happened. But that's where we are, just an accusation. This is not but I want to comment on something important because he in his complaint, he sues for civil rights violations. And I think it was last week when we said a court threw out civil rights violations, saying unless you had an affirmative duty to act, saying to the paramedics, unless you were obligated by law to act and provide ambulance treatment, the fact that you responded and provided it, even as part of the fire department, is not enough to violate your civil rights. Here, if I'm them, I'm moving to dismiss the civil rights and other claims based on that case from last week, saying, well, wait a minute, this is the exact same facts. right? We didn't have the obligation to respond. And everything we did was discretionary. And frankly, everything they did probably was discretionary, what drug to give, et cetera. So as a civil rights violation, that may get thrown out. And attorneys for this case, if you're watching us, you should go look at last week's video.
Yeah, he's pro se. He's pro se.
Oh, is he pro se?
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably why I didn't understand half the complaint.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think there's a couple, you brought up a really good point. I hadn't thought about it, that really there's two parts to this. There really is that first part, which I think is the kind of nonsense we constantly seem to deal with somebody who's claiming to be ill, claiming to have chest pains, difficulty breathing, but they still want to go through their transaction at the bank, and they're lying under the table, and like all that drama kind of stuff. Okay. Right. So, but what can happen then is that initial impression of the patient as being some sort of a problem person then can cause you to maybe not treat the person properly, not consider what they're saying about their allergies and some of the other things. And now you end up in a situation where he's claiming that he's got some sort of kidney failure that is associated with the, let me see if I can get it right.
Was it Haldol, Versed, or something else?
Yeah, well, something that he was given, and he was then unconscious once they gave it to him, but it's called, I'm going to butcher this one, rhabdomyolysis, rhabdomyolysis, whatever. Yeah. And but he's got a serious form of muscle damage and acute kidney injury. So, you wonder if his initial impression as somebody who's just claiming one thing but behaving in a different way might have caused some of his course of treatment to go the way it ended up going.
If it's true,
again, absolutely, if it's true. Right. But if he was indeed allergic to it and he told the medics, don't give me that, and they gave it to him anyway, that's certainly going to be a problem. Now, the plaintiff's problem here is that it looks like he did a pretty good job for a pro se plaintiff. He did a pretty good job of making his factual allegations, but he's missing about 10 pages in the complaint to properly make your allegations of negligence, malpractice, right. Certainly those civil rights allegations and so on. So he kind of, my concern is this is going to be dismissed based on the failure to plead it properly.
And you got to imagine he went to some law firms, and the law firms looked at him or his case and said, no.
I would think so, and I find that hard to believe, especially in a big metropolitan area like LA with folks that advertise and they'll take slip and falls and they'll take virtually anything.
Right.
I do, but that may also explain maybe some of his behavior at the beginning of this, because I think if we separate the beginning and how the first impression went with this person and then his subsequent treatment, maybe that explains, maybe his behavior explains why the medics treated him the way they did, and maybe why he can't find an attorney to represent him. I don't know.
Or maybe the medics didn't treat him that way, and they treated him.
That's true too. Yeah, absolutely. And maybe, I know people don't believe this, but attorneys are under an obligation of due diligence to research before they file a lawsuit. A person can't just come in and make these allegations and you file a lawsuit. We can be sanctioned and disciplined. So they've got to do some research, and maybe when they actually get the reports, maybe they didn't feel comfortable pursuing it. So, but interesting set of allegations, and I guess his initial explanation of what happened at the bank just brought me back to so many different runs I've been on, where you just have somebody who's, really having chest pains, but you want to continue with the bank. Right. Make up your mind. Either it is serious and we're holding up an EMS unit for you, or it's really not all that serious. So,
right. And who knows? He could be. I mean, we just don't know. But in any event, we don't. The city, look, and there's all sorts of notice of claim requirements. They may have missed filing deadlines. may turn into nothing. Or it may drag out forever, but very tough for a pro se person to navigate their way through federal court.